So here the first question is, which is a curated knowledge base and model of cyber adversary behavior, reflecting the various phases of adversary attacks, life cycle, and the platform they are known to target. So here the options are meteor attacks, CVE, risk management framework, and security management. So the correct answer is option A, meteor framework. So a meteor framework is a knowledge base that helps model cyber adversaries, tactics, and techniques, and then shows how to detect and stop them. It's a kind of a knowledge base, so which contains all the known cyber attacks and how to mitigate them, and what are the security procedures we need to follow. So everything is documented. This is the open source one. Here the second question is the process of running a simulated instances of a computer system in a layered abstracted from the underlying hardware server or workstation. So which are those containerization, simulation, emulation, or virtualization? So here the keyword is simulated instance in a layered abstraction. So which one abstract the physical layer to the processing layer? So the answer is virtualization. So virtualization is the fundamental technology powering cloud computing. So without virtualization, the cloud computing it's not at all possible. So virtualization is very much important. So here the question is, which uses encrypted machine generated codes to verify a user's identity? So here the options are basic authentication, form based authentication, and token based authentication. So here the keyword is instead of user validating the user identity based on username and password, so the computer is going to generate a code. So out of these three, so basic authentication involves sending plain username and password, and in form based authentication also, so it uses a username and password. So in the only the token based authentication, the computer generated tokens or code or token is used to validate or verify the user's identity. So the option C is the correct one. So here the question is, in the context of cybersecurity, typical threat actors include the following. So insider, outsider, technology, or all. So as per the context of cybersecurity, so all of the three options are considered as a threat actors. So here the question is, Zen server, LVM, Hyper-V, EXSI, or option A, type 2 hypervisor, type 1, or both or none. So Zen server, LVM, Hyper-V, and EXSI are type 1 hypervisor. So what is the difference between type 1 and type 2? In type 1 hypervisor, so that the hypervisor is placed on top of that bare metal hardware, and all the VMs will be running on the top of that hypervisor. In type 2 hypervisor, the hypervisor will be installed on top of host OS. So it's not directly that the hypervisor is not going to directly talk to the hardware. It's need to talk to the host OS. So that's the difference between type 1 and type 2 hypervisors. So here the question is the harmonization of automated computing tasks, providing a consolidated and reusable workflow. So which of the cloud orchestration, cloud manager, cloud broker, or cloud controller? So here the keyword is reusable workflow. So we have the computing task that we are going to reuse. So which are the options providing that one? So cloud manager, cloud broker, and cloud controller are not at all related. So only the cloud orchestration talks about automated computing task and reusable workflow. So the option A is correct one. And example of this cloud orchestrations are the Microsoft Azure automation, cloud AWS cloud formation, Kubernetes, and Terraform. So here the question is, which authentication helps build relationship between different technology providers, enabling automatic identification and user access. Employees no longer need to enter username and password when visiting a new service provider. So here the keyword is the employee no longer need to enter username and password for a new service provider. So which one supports this? Basic authentication? No, basic authentication needs user need to enter username and password for all the new service providers. Kerberos, Kerberos won't support. It's a ticket-based authentication mechanism where it only supports a single domain or single service provider. It won't support multiple service providers. Token-based authentication is the authentication mechanism where the computer-generated tokens are used to verify the user's identity. So that also not related to multiple service providers. And federated authentication, that's a correct one. The federated authentication supports multiple service provider authentication, and it needs to establish a trust between the service provider and the identity provider. So whoever all the service providers establishes thread the trust, the user can able to authenticate with the same identified tokens. Here the question is, which layer of OSI the firewall works? Layer 3, layer 4 and layer 7. So firewall works on all the 3 layers. So the answer is D. So typically the firewall works on layer 3 and layer 4, and the latest application firewall works on layer 7. So all are the correct answers. So here the question is, which is an approach to networking that uses software-based controllers or application programming interface to communicate with the underlying hardware infrastructure and direct traffic on network. So here the keyword is software-based controllers. So VLAN, SDN, VPN, and SAN. So the correct answer is the VLAN is not the answer. That is a virtual LAN. That is not software-based controllers are not involved, and VPN also not that correct answer. So VPN is not used for control the network traffics. And SAN, storage as a network, is also not related to that software-based controllers. So the correct answer is SDN, software-defined network. So here the question is, which layer does VLAN hopping belong to? So what is VLAN hopping? So VLAN hopping is a method of attacking the network resource of the VLAN by sending packet to a port not usually accessible from an end system. So usually VLAN basically works in which layer of OSI model? It works on the layer 2. So so the VLAN hopping also belongs to the layer 2 of the OSI model. So the answer is D. So here the question is, what does are and measures of an organization's baseline of security performance? Security assessment, security audit, security benchmark, and security management. So the correct answer is security benchmark. So here the question is example of token based authentication. So here the options are Kerberos, Basic, OAuth, and NTLM. So Kerberos is not a token based, it is ticket based authentication. And basic authentication, it uses username and plain username and password. And NTLM is also not a token based. It sends the hashed password value to the server to validate the user's identity. So OAuth is the correct answer. OAuth is the token based authentication. So here the question is, which is an authorized simulated attack performed on a computer system to evaluate its security? So here the keyword is evaluate its security. So the option A, penetration testing, it's a correct answer. Security testing, this also might be correct answer. And automated testing and regression testing are not related to security. So since a question status authorized simulated attack, so penetration testing is the appropriate answer. So here the question is, what is the first phase in system development life cycle? So options are requirement analysis, feasibility study, design phase, and development phase. As per the ISC square, the feasibility study is the first phase in SDLC process. So requirement analysis will do later stage. First, we'll see whether that product development is feasible or not feasible. So B is the correct answer. So here the question is, what is the type of system architecture where a single instance can serve multiple distinct user group? So here the options are multi-threading, multi-processing, multi-tenancy, and multi-cloud. So here the keyword is serve multiple distinct user groups. So which and all serves the multiple user groups? Multi-processing. So it's not the correct answer. It's just a processing multiple way. And multi-threading, that also same. It's just creating a thread inside a process to do multiple operations. And multi-tenancy, that's a correct answer. So that in cloud terms, we use a multi-tenancy to support or serve multiple distinct user groups with a single instance. So multi-cloud is not a correct answer. So option C is a correct one. So this is a difference between single tenancy and multi-tenancy. So in single tenancy, so we have a different instance for different customers or users. In multi-tenancy, we have a single instance processing instance. It serves multiple user groups, and and the underlying database or the store, we can have a different store for each individual groups. So here the question is difference between sniffing and snooping. So here the option A is sniffing is a process of intercepting and collecting network traffic as it passes over digital network. That is correct. Snooping is the act of disguise communication from unknown sources being trustworthy. Okay, that also correct. So option A is the correct one. So here the question is, DAS is a distributed denial of service attack in which an attacker attempts to flood a target server with Internet Control Message Protocol. So options are DOS, sync flood, smirk attack, and phishing attack. DOS is not the correct one. Sync flood is not also not related. Smirk attack is the related one. Phishing attack is not related to ICMP packet. So option C is the correct one. So here the question is, COVID-19 is one of the best, perfect example of a situation where a DAS plan is enacted to sustain the business. So here the keyword is there is no impact, there is no incident, there is no disaster. In the sense, any in IT or communication systems are not affected. So the answer C is a correct one. Business continuity plan. So here the question is, port forwarding is also known as port mapping, tunneling, punch through, or all. So what is port forwarding? So port forwarding is a mechanism through which the device or computer in the private network can be accessible from public computers. By default, the private computers are not, but the private computer in the sense, the local computers which is connected to the service provider, internet service provider, that is not directly accessible from public devices. So if we enable the port forwarding and let the port to be enabled, through that port, the outside public computer can able to connect to the private computers. And the option D is the correct one. Port forwarding is also known as all of the three. So this is a pictorial representation of port forwarding. So here the port 8001 is enabled for forwarding. So consider a scenario, if you have any one web application, if you have deployed in your local machine, and if you want let that outside public internet to access that site, so in that case, you can let that internet service provider to know. So enable the port 800 for forwarding. And then if that after the port forwarding was enabled, the outside the public computers can able to access the website using 8001 port. So that's a advantage of port forwarding. DAS are also known as virtual machine monitor or VMM is a software that creates and runs virtual machines. So here the options are hypervisor, simulation, emulation, or cloud controller. So here the keyword is to run a virtual machines. The simulation and emulation not related to virtual machine. Cloud controller also not related to virtual machines. So only the option A is a correct one. So this is the hypervisor. So here we see the two types of hypervisor. Type 1 hypervisor. So the hypervisor the instance runs on top of that hardware. So there is no need of the host OS. And then the type 2 hypervisor, that hypervisor will be installed or deployed on top of the host OS. So that's a difference between type 1 and type 2 hypervisors. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Also comment whether the topics, the out of syllabus topics which I have covered is enough, or do you need any more questions to be covered. And best wishes for your exam.